cultures prospered whenever we had a hard money, most commonly gold. What that means is your time, your effort in doing things is rewarded by a money that is scarce. Central banks are able to create more money out of nowhere. The person who is working very hard to make $20, that $20 has less share of the market because there's more dollars out there. So his hard work is being lost into money that's created out of nowhere. And that money that was created out of nowhere, the central authorities are able to concentrate it for their own well-being, where they are able to buy the things that actually have value.
Yeah.
They use that printed money to buy real estate, to buy gold, which makes everything more expensive. This is the lie of the 20th century.
Are you aware that you share your last name with a famous and well-known Bitcoiner?
I am, yes. He is related to me.
Really? That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
So, in what way are you related?
He's my brother.
Wait a minute. You're Saifedean's brother?
Yes, sir.
Oh man, that's so cool. I had no idea.
Yeah, there you go.
That's amazing. Well, obviously then you have read his books.
Yes. I was there when he was writing it, so.
Wow, that's really cool. Well, that caught me by surprise, but that's absolutely great. So then which one of you was it that got into Bitcoin first? Like, was it him?
It was definitely him. I mean, he was an Austrian economist, so he was into gold, and that's
right.
Through that he discovered Bitcoin. But it was the same time that he was kind of understanding how bad the financial system is. It was the same time that I was understanding how bad the medical system is. So it was funny, us divergent paths, but coming to the same conclusions.
Wow. So what about the medical system or path was it that you noticed that wasn't going in the direction that you were hoping, or maybe you felt disillusioned in some way? Or
yeah, I mean, so I worked hard to get into medical school. We had the American system. You have to do a bachelor's degree first, and it's very competitive to get into medical school. And once I got there, I worked so hard to get there, and the things that they were teaching me were not helping people get better. People were improving 20-30%, and even though they're doing everything that their doctor recommends, they're taking the medications, they're doing the blood work, all of this, and it was very disheartening for me, very discouraging.
Yeah.
Why I've worked so hard to get here, and I'm only helping people so little.
Yeah.
And I went on. It so happened at the same time that I did some dietary changes for myself. And I felt amazing just by fixing my diet, cutting out processed food, cutting out sugar. And I started wondering, well, if diet has helped me, who I thought I was relatively healthy before, wouldn't it help all these very sick people that I see in the hospital? And so I went online to search for answers, and what I did find is that actually no, a lot of informed doctors, that's what they actually do.
I think you cut out.
That's how they actually fix the problems. But what we are taught in medical school doesn't want to do that because there's no profit to be made there. The profit is made from selling people expensive drugs and expensive surgeries.
So you're in school and you realize that what you are being taught is only helping about 30% of the time.
Yes.
And then you do your own research and you realize, hey, maybe I'll change my diet. And then you do so and you realize maybe it can help other people. And then do you employ that to your own practices? How do you go about do you have to defy what you were taught? Do you have to, or did you have your own practice? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I was still a medical student then, so I was still learning, and it was very difficult for me because I thought, should I just quit and go learn on my own? Is it worth it to get this degree if they're gonna just be teaching me how to push pills? And so it was a difficult decision for me, but I decided to stick with it because I knew having the credentials will serve me in the long run. Having the degree And I had to also do residency, which you also have to practice the medicine that they teach you.
Hmm.
But eventually, once I started working, I started my own online practice. And this is what I do now. I see patients online and I tell them the kind of medicine that actually helps them: diet, lifestyle, fixing their light environment, all these things. And, I definitely see much better results than the stuff that I was taught in medical school.
So what in practice, or I mean specifically, are dietary changes that you made that made you feel better, or that made others feel better? Was it specific food items that you were researching that did that, or was it just personal experiences that you used to help others?
Yeah, I mean, it started for me with something called the paleo diet. It's a pretty good starting point for people. And the principles of the paleo diet is that human beings lived for hundreds of thousands of years as hunter-gatherers before the advent of agriculture, which only happened 10,000 years ago. So all of the foods we've gotten post agriculture, our biology is not very good at handling. So these include things, of course, like processed sugar, grains, bread, flour. So cutting out all these things and focusing on things that we would have either hunted or gathered, like meats, eggs, fruits, and vegetables, will go a very long way in fixing a lot of our health issues.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a little bit of nuance in what people can tolerate, what people cannot tolerate. Depends on what medical condition they have. They might have to be more or less lenient. But this is generally the framework that I follow. And it's helped a lot of my patients.
How much time did you spend on learning about nutrition in your medical practice, in your medical school years?
Yeah, very good question. I had one lecture that was 40 minutes long. That was everything that I was taught about nutrition.
And the duration of how many years?
4 years.
Wow. 40 minutes in 4 years.
Yep.
I heard somebody say one time that, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a lecture about like what should you tell your patients to eat. It was a lecture about how to dose insulin based on how much carbohydrates patients ate.
Wow.
That's the only education that I got.
That's fascinating. Well, that is a lot of work to. It reminds me of something that someone said one time, that doctors practice to become legal drug dealers. And I remember laughing at that, but you're saying there's some truth to it.
It's 100% true, and the entire framework is just structured to just serve pharmaceutical medicine, and it's not it's not greedy, corporations that are doing this. It's not, big pharma that's only to blame for this. The level of corruption goes a lot higher than that. So, and specifically understanding it from the US perspective, in 1910, this report was written called the Flexner Report. And the purpose of this report was to standardize medical education in all of America. And, it sounds good on paper. Let's standardize things, make sure we follow certain protocols, make sure that, we weed out all the quacks. But what they actually did was they criminalized any medical school that was not teaching pharmaceutical based medicine. And so back then, if you wanted to go to a doctor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a doctor that gives you pills. We had naturopaths, we had homeopaths, we had other holistic healing modalities, we had osteopaths. And so there were different schools of doing medicine that have been prospering for hundreds, if not even more, years. Then all of a sudden, this uh, government entity decided that all these medical schools need to be shut down and we should only follow pharmaceutical medicine. And this is why right now all of medical education and all of the hospitals, all the clinics, all they follow is pharmaceutical based medicine. All other schools of thought were just eliminated and criminalized. And this model was taken from the US because the US is, the leader in innovation in the world and applied all over the world, unfortunately.
So they went away from a nuanced practice where they would specify a treatment for a patient to go over to a one-size-fits-all sort of system.
One size fits all, and the size is just drugs.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Is there in any way, in your knowledge, a connection between the sale of drugs and the food and the nutrition that people are fed? Is there, because obviously there are conspiracies, you know, oh, the people and the same companies and the same organizations and conglomerates that own the food industry also own the medical industry. Is that in any way something that you've thought about?
Yes, definitely. I mean, there are the same drivers that drive our the nutrition of our food to go down are the same drivers that want to sell you medications. Whether these companies are directly benefiting from each other, whether they're the same companies, they are both benefiting from each other's business.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Monsanto, the biggest food company, the biggest agricultural company in the world, took over Bayer, which was one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies, and now they're the same thing. So they sell you the poison in food that's highly processed, that's loaded with pesticides, and then they sell you the medicine, which are drugs that keep you sick.
So
And
this, please.
and in general, I mean, all of this centralized way of living, all of this centralized decree of how you should live your life, how you should eat, how doctors should treat their patients, this all started in the 1910s after the creation of the Federal Reserve. Because this is when the government changed its role from, the government was just about the protection of your private property then. If you had a piece of land, someone interfered with that, government would come and handle that dispute. But the creation of the Federal Reserve allowed the government to grow so big because it was able to print money out of nowhere. And this growth in government changed the role of government into one where they are concerned about your well-being. Sounds great on paper, they want you to eat the food that they recommend and get the medicine that you want. But what it means is once you have a centralized authority controlling these things, this authority is very easily corruptible.
Yeah.
And so the industry just goes and corrupts the people handling this problem. And this is where we end up where we are right now.
It seems like such a huge issue. It seems like we're moving in a socialistic way.
We are, and we have been since the early 1900s.
Wow, do you think the movement has been going on for that long?
Yes.
Really, the turning point was the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913.
Yes. Murray Rothbard, who is an Austrian economist, wrote a book about this called The Progressive Era. And so the beginning of the 1900s was the beginning of the progressive era, where, all of a sudden the government is interested in so much more than you would want to give them rights to. But it was forced on you. And like the generations that are now born take it for granted that, oh yes, the government should dictate what kind of food you get. The government should dictate what kind of medicine your doctor prescribes. The problem is that that's not how the free market works. You are destroying the free market model in this economy, and it's just making it all centralized and all easily corruptible.
To me, it sounds like, I mean, maybe it's too much to compare it, or maybe it's too extreme to compare it. But if you pull this to the most disastrous extreme, is North Korea.
Yeah, Soviet Union. It's similar to the Soviet Union, but we're no longer being, told that, oh, this is communism, this is socialism. We're just, being told that this is the right thing to do. This is being done for your own protection.
Yeah, because I do have that sensation that they say like, hey, these are all the dangers out there. The news cycles is filled with fear and stress and anxiety, and then they're like, here, we're going to serve you the solution, which is our protection. That's the
Yep,
sensation that I get when I read newspapers and when I
exactly.
follow politicians.
Give us more of your freedom, more of your energy, more of your uh, focus, more of your brain power,
Attention, yeah.
and we will handle all your problems. But that's not what they're actually doing. They're just, you know, focusing, concentrating the money in their own hands and taking it away from you.
Is this one of the reasons why it's so hard? Because it was so hard to find research papers that are interesting and well made. Because I've done some research and I try to understand ways in which I can make informed decisions. So I thought, hey, maybe I learn to read research papers. Maybe I learn to understand what is a good research paper. Maybe I find good research papers so that I can make informed decisions. But I'm struggling to find those. Do they also have their finger in science? Do they have their
Of course, I mean, yeah, they are in control of the universities. You don't progress in universities unless you teach and research the ideas that they recommend. And you know, the research from the universities also feeds into the private sector, which is only interested in certain ideas, certain fiat ideas. And all of this is kept in check with the journals, including medical journals, where the entire publishing process is very, very highly centralized, and you're not allowed to publish anything that's outside the mainstream. If you want to talk about things outside the mainstream, nobody's going to accept these papers. Nobody's going to peer review these papers, and they just end up being fringe ideas.
So I'm a scientist. I go to school. I'm excited. I'm a young kid. I'm eager to find out and do research and find out answers that I've been wondering for my entire young life. And I get into this school where I get to practice researching. Like, isn't it obvious for those who are genuinely interested in doing research that the system is broken in some way? Like, how is this allowed to happen when there are so many, I assume, eager and curious people that want to do honest research but aren't able to do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question, and like this is something I've wondered a lot in all of my fellow physicians. Don't you see how defective what we're doing is? Don't you see that we're not helping anyone? How does this compare to your mission of you grew up all your life dreaming to be a doctor and you're not able to help anyone? But the problem is that, you know, since you were a child, you've been indoctrinated in school and then later in university just to follow orders and do as they tell you. it, if you don't do the homework the way they want, if you don't submit papers the way they want you to do, you're not going to progress. You're not going to make it to the next grade. So by the time you make it to grad school, say, you already need to know that you should only discuss the ideas that they recommend that you discuss. And if you discuss it in any different way than they would like, then you're not going to progress through. And so that's basically how dissenting voices are just silenced.
But there's a professor in the picture there that is giving these instructions to the students. The professor, it sounds like to me, is receiving instructions. He is not able to give freedom or freedom to the students to do their own research on the things that they are most interested in. So in that level of the professor and their, I don't know, boss or leader, isn't that's a breach in their sort of relationship and professional work? Like, I feel like there's in one of these steps there must be somebody that is like, hey, let's take a step back here and confront this silly thing that's happening. Like, somebody here is telling me how I'm supposed to do something, and I'm like, oh yeah, fine, okay, let's do it this way for a little bit. But then the cycle continues, and I'm still not able to do research the way that I want to on the things that I want. Like, is there corruption in the entire cycle of leaders? Like, that's, to me, that's
So
crazy.
the professor himself doesn't think that he's corrupt. He's not, getting paid by the professor himself is indoctrinated as well, thinking that this is the only way to do things. And the society that in that grad school, in that university, they also believe in the same things and only want to research the same things.
Yeah.
Whether there's a central agency somewhere that's, dictating all these ideas and deciding what things are okay to talk about and what things are not, I'll leave that up to you guys' imagination.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer,
Yeah.
but like the professor is indoctrinated. The professors that taught me in medical school are indoctrinated. They think this is the only way to do things. And then this entire, it's become kind of like religious dogma where everything is just the scientific method.
Yeah.
You're supposed to follow, you're supposed to just do the work that was laid before you and just add slightly to it. Don't think on your own.
Yeah.
Don't try and question things on your own.
Just do what you're told.
It's a propaganda. It's a propaganda campaign.
Yeah, because I would see how that is possible in a world where people don't study to become researchers or scientists because of their genuine interest, but because it's financially, I don't know, a good idea. Maybe the same reason that some doctors become doctors, because they're pushed by their parents. It's not genuine interest. So by going into something that you're not actually genuinely interested in, maybe you are okay with not asking questions because you're just like here to collect a paycheck. So it does make sense.
Most people are like that.
Yeah.
Most people are like that. And honestly, right now, if you really want to learn something on your own, you're much better off going online and learning it on your own than you are going to university.
Yeah.
If you want to understand economics, say, or it's a lot better to just go online. It's more efficient. You'll get different perspectives. You'll be able to focus in on what you like rather than what the university wants you to think about.
Do you think about the younger generation being pounded with so much terrible and old information in schools? And I don't know, social media is more like an interest graph right now, but even today, young adults at 16 are pushed into college, pushed into high schools, pushed into places where they are taught information that isn't necessarily going to be useful for them in their adult life. Do you have kids yourself? How do you see this?
It's a shame. I mean, again, it starts as early as kindergarten, You're supposed to think in a certain way. We don't like free thinking. And, just focus on your homework, focus on the subjects that we teach you. And it gets pretty bad in the university level, because this is the point in your life where you should start learning things that are useful for people around you, useful for your community. And this is when your brain is the most malleable, most eager to grow. But then you're getting thrown into things that have no practical value, just thrown into more and more analyzing things that are irrelevant to real life, just for getting that extra degree, getting that promotion.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a destruction of people's effort, destruction of people's minds, destruction of people's growth potential.
It does seem like we are suffering from, especially in the Western world, from boiling frog syndrome. Have you heard about this?
Yep.
I live in Norway. I grew up in Norway, and for me, this is a clear example because my family's from Chile, but I grew up here, and culture in Chile is a lot more including, warm. We do things together. It's not as individualistic as it is in Norway. And what I notice is that we're so focused on our own success that we don't see what's happening next to us. We're just competing. Even though we're friends, we're competing against each other. Like, we're buying materialistic things to prove others that we can afford it. But we're not aware, because we've had this for generations now. I feel like my friends' grandparents and their parents had pretty good lives. Well, their parents probably had struggled with the war, stuff like that, but it's probably at least 2 or 3 generations now where people have enjoyed prosperity. So we're not opening our eyes here. To me, we're like, it seems like people are just sailing in their own well-being, if you could say it that way. We're not aware of the dangers of a centralization. We're not aware of the dangers of socialism. We don't really want to look at the issue because we're not used to solving hard problems, or solving challenges that are difficult to get through. It's more like we just pick a path and just do what you need to do and then live a nice life. Like that's the problems. That's the main issues that we have here professionally. So I feel like we're struggling with not having big enough problems to wake up.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you could think of it. I mentioned the Soviet Union earlier. The Soviet Union failed because people they didn't have enough to eat. They didn't have any sort of materialistic things to have a decent life. Right now, those in power have figured if we give them just enough they sustain themselves and are sufficiently entertained, and also at the same time give them really degenerate entertainment that can take over their entire life and brainwash them to crazy amounts, then they'll never be able to analyze things on their
Yeah.
own. Then they're always just caught up in this circus that we've drawn up for them. And it allows whoever's in power to centralize power even more.
Yeah. That is one of the issues that we're experiencing, especially in the EU. I'm sure you're aware with all this immigration stuff. We're just fighting culture wars everywhere. It feels like we're just disagreeing on stuff that is absolutely unnecessary to be fighting over. Like what's your skin color? I mean, okay, racism, it's not necessarily directly racism, but it's more like issues of race and gender. Like, why are we so caught up in this stuff? To me, as somebody who luckily felt, now in hindsight, I can look back and say, hey, I felt like I didn't belong growing up in Norway because I didn't fully get integrated into the culture. I didn't feel at home here. It's strange that we're fighting these silly wars, and not necessarily like bomb wars like Ukraine, Russia, whatever. It's more like these culture wars that keep us interested in stuff that isn't going to change anything.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, rather than like if you are concerned about the color of your neighbor, rather than thinking about, well, why is my money being devalued all the time? Why are things getting more expensive? Why is
Yeah.
inflation happening?
Yeah.
It also feeds into like very primal uh, primal neural networks in your brain where it's us versus them. And if you can hype that up with the media, people are just thinking about all that useless stuff rather than thinking about what actually matters. Why the quality of doctor, the quality of medicine that you're getting is defective, that has nothing to do with the color of the physician that's doing it or the color of the patient. Or
Obviously.
it's because the system is completely broken and the system's completely corrupt and only interested in making money. In order to get to that next level of analysis, so that you don't get there, they're distracting you with more basic, useless stuff.
So they keep you busy so that you don't fight those class wars, so that you continue with those culture wars. They will be able
Exactly.
to continue doing what they do with impunity, well, damned everybody else. It does seem very sinister, though. It does seem like there's some sort of, I don't know, the opposite of God. Like if
Yeah,
there is a God, like, I mean, there is some counterforce here that is definitely existing as well, right?
this is the work of the devil. Whatever you believe the devil is, this is the work of the devil.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels more like a spiritual war than it feels like anything else.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and again, it goes down to the spiritual war starts inside of you.
Yeah.
You have to win that war first in order to be able to grow it in the society. But people have lost track of their connection with themselves, unfortunately, because of all these distractions out there.
Yeah. It does seem like we've completely disconnected from ourselves. Me being one of them, I struggled with abuse of drugs for a while, and it took some years to become aware, and it took some difficult steps to, shift course. I don't know what helped me do that. I don't know. I read self-help books, and I've done that for many years. But I don't know. Is it what do people need to like wake up? Because it feels like they need to encounter some sort of deep emotional pain or some horrible challenge that is hard to get out of for them to like snap out of whatever delusion they are in.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have, communities, churches, religion, a community, a lot of tools in order to help people, regain that connection. Family was a big deal. Extended family was a big deal.
Yeah.
All these things, they're meant as safeguards to see if you are struggling through lost touch in touch with yourself. There are people to help you around. I think luckily at this point, the magic of the internet is you can get to these resources now just if you do the right Google search. And
Yeah.
I think this is why there's a lot of people that are awakening right now. And our mission should be to just try and make the message as clear as possible out there, and so that it's easy to find for everyone who's interested.
Let's talk about Bitcoin for a minute. How I know Saifedean has a great way of explaining how all of this fits into Bitcoin and how Bitcoin will solve this, or is a great tool, if not the best tool, to change course, to do something that is actually going to help humanity in the long run. What is your take on this?
Yeah, it's 100%. I mean, as I told you, this all started with the creation of the Federal Reserve, and for the first time, the the issue of money, the issue of value, could be created out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So historically, we were able to prosper. Cultures prospered whenever we had a hard money,
Mm-hmm.
most commonly gold.
Yeah.
What that means is your time, your effort in doing things, the value that you bring to the world is rewarded by a money that is scarce. If you put in hard work for someone, they pay you with gold or the equivalent of gold. You know that your good work is not being wasted. However, if a certain entity is able to create money out of nowhere, and this is how our modern fiat system runs, where central banks are able to create more money out of nowhere. So they can decide tomorrow that we want an extra $5 trillion to be put in the market. They can just print it.
Yeah.
That's it. What does that do? That means that the person who is working very hard to make $20, that $20 has less share of the market because there's more dollars out there. So his hard work is being lost into money that's created out of nowhere. And that money that was created out of nowhere, the central authorities are able to concentrate it for their own well-being, where they are able to buy the things that actually have value.
Yeah.
Say they use that printed money to buy real estate, to buy gold, which makes everything more expensive for you. And this is the lie of the 20th century. They, in order, they're able to create value out of nowhere, so everything else loses value.
I have a friend that is studying finance here in Norway. Well, we haven't spoken in a while, but he knew that I was into Bitcoin, and I was curious to know what he learns about inflation in school. And he told me that they recently had talked about inflation in his class, and they are taught that it's necessary. It's necessary for growth.
This is basically the lie that this entire system was built on, and it's based on the ideas of Keynes, the economist, which is you need inflation in order for the economy to run properly. And you can just create a few equations, assume several things, and draw a couple of cool looking graphs, and you can just convince people that this is actually true. And this is what the whole entire purpose of education, economics education is. This is what all universities in the world are teaching. And once you spread that idea out in the community, then people assume that it's okay for everything to get more expensive. It's okay that everything's losing value. And it's okay that there's a central bank controlling all of this. And this is all a scam in order to keep this this
Illusion.
money printing agenda going on.
But it's a house of cards, though. I mean, it's so easy to look up 1929. It's so easy to look up, what is it, 1983, 86? Like all these years where there was a financial depression, we know what the reason was. It was printing money for the purpose of war.
Yep.
And we're doing basically the same thing now.
People who, if you ask a Harvard economist what they think the cause is, they wouldn't tell you it's money printing.
What would they say?
Inefficient markets, greedy people keeping money, all sorts of excuses, but money printing is never seen as the culprit. Because you're plugged out of the matrix and you're not being taught what the mainstream wants you to know, can easily get to that conclusion. But
yeah,
the more economics education you have, the less you're able to get to that conclusion.
That is so strange to me.
And it's the same with medicine, with, like, say, diet and lifestyle. It's a lot harder for me to convince my fellow physicians that you could actually heal people just using diet. It's a lot harder for me to educate indoctrinated people than it is to educate the normal human being who just has never been brainwashed like this.
When I was young, I just didn't fit into school. I hated it. I just wasn't supposed to be there. The only reason I was excited for it to a certain degree was because I was going to be able to see my friends. At the time, I saw it as an absolute nightmare, and like I was cursed because I just didn't want to continue. I did high school, and I said, man, 13 years of school in Norway, I'm done with this. Like, I just did not want to go back to an institution, to a teaching institution, or what is it called? Educational institution, to fix my life or to create my future. But in hindsight, maybe it was just a blessing.
Probably was. You're a lot more open-minded to understanding and analyzing ideas if you didn't go to university. It doesn't mean that a university degree on its own is bad, but a lot of people, it leads them into just very narrow-minded and single-sighted ways of thinking that it ends up harming more than helping them.
Yeah, it does seem like people that go to school become narrow-minded. Yeah, I feel like, at least with the people that I went to school with, I do interact with some of them online, and it feels like they know a lot about very little.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that being such a strange thing because I was interested in so many things. And it was weird to me to be like, hey, I'm going to push aside all these natural interests that I have to go study something that is supposed to, I don't know, buy me a house in the future. Like, the system felt so dumb and broken to me when we were growing up.
Yeah.
What's the way forward, man? What do we do?
I mean, I am biased. I will tell you that the way forward is we need to get rid of the ability of governments to print money out of nowhere.
Yes.
I think this is the first step. And this is why people understanding and adopting Bitcoin is very important. Bitcoin is the only truly scarce resource right now in a digital world. So there are only 21 million Bitcoin, and we are unable to create any more Bitcoin out of nowhere. So if we get to the point where everybody is using Bitcoin for transactions between them, for holding onto value, then the money that your government creates is useless.
Yeah.
It has no power over you, and their money printing agenda has no power over you. So all this centralized control mechanisms that they have are not possible without the tools that they use, which is fiat money.
Yeah.
So you are able to get the tools out of their hands and make them powerless. by using Bitcoin. And at the same time, while you are doing that, Bitcoin is going to give you the financial freedom that you are no longer a slave to the system that you needed in order to pay rent and to pay your mortgage and to pay your debt. Hopefully that will give you time to actually study what actually matters, what actually helps people feel better medically, how economics actually works, what services you can use for due to the community to actually support and help the people around you.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I loved studying about Bitcoin when I first found it was the fact that I was asking questions that seemed obvious to ask, but that I've never asked before. Like, what is money? Like, where does it come from? Like, why is it even a thing? Like, and then it was starting to studying the beads and the shells and the gold and the copper and like it all has a pretty obvious history to it. And now, why are we not taught in school? Now it seems obvious because of our conversation. They don't want us to know. It's not
Yep.
beneficial for them to know, for them to teach us that money
They need to
works the way it
continue the
does.
scam.
But isn't there like an extreme fallback here? Like they can't print money forever. Runaway inflation is a sure thing, right? Like every time this has been done throughout history, we've seen hyperinflation. But it feels like the dollar is a lot more resilient than, I don't know, the Zimbabwe dollar or the peso in Venezuela, or you know. Do you have a thought on
The
that?
levels of the levels of printing that they have done recently are quite quite magnitudes more than they've done
Yeah,
any time in history.
yeah,
And I mean, the level of totalitarian control that governments have had over the last, 5 years since COVID happened have also been increasingly great. So, we're reaching the point where this is not going to be sustainable over the long term. And what are they going to do then? Are they going to just, you know, have us be stuck at home? You're not allowed to leave, like COVID. You're not allowed to go meet people. You're not allowed to use your money. It's certainly possible. They can digitally do that these days. Who knows? And I mean, your best way out of it is to make sure that you have a source of value that they're unable to take away from you, and
yeah.
that's your Bitcoin.
What's a practical step for somebody who hasn't encountered Bitcoin yet? They know about it, they've heard about it in the media, whatever, but they haven't taken that first step. Like, what is something that they can do, in your opinion, that wakes them up to the possibility of this, to its properties, to the things that it actually does? Transfer money globally on a blink of an eye, stuff like this.
I mean, yeah, you have to put in the effort to learn about it. Nobody's going to teach you this stuff. You have to put in the time to learn about it. It's probably the most important investment you'll ever going to make, especially if you're young right now. Like, it could take you a few, how many days or weeks or months to learn about this, but it could be the thing that gives you financial freedom in a few years, financial independence. So it's worth you putting the effort. Start by reading the Bitcoin Standard. That's a great way to start. Understand why money is so important. That's a great place to start. And then slowly you need to understand how do I buy this thing? Where do I store my Bitcoin? All these things. And there's plenty of resources out there if you're curious to learn about it. And start gradually, start slowly, learn slowly, build up. And the best investment you can make right now is learning about these things, because you are only 1% of the world knows about Bitcoin right now. So you are in the first few to learn about it. And even if you don't have the money to buy that much Bitcoin, even $10 now will eventually go a long way in the future.
Yeah, it's one of those things that fascinate me about Bitcoin, is that how early we are. I found it 2019, and at the time I thought I was late. But the more I talk to people, the more I watch Joe Nakamoto's videos, and he walks around the streets of different countries around the world where people say, "Hey, I have no idea what this is. I've never even heard about it." Like, I realize how early we actually are. Bitcoin is going to reach, in my opinion, I think we're going to reach multiple $1 million by maybe 10 years. By now I think it's going to be at least $2 million, maybe 15 years. But like, it just makes, if that's the upside, like, it just makes sense for people to actually study it and get into it and, you know, do what's necessary to actually understand.
Exactly. Do it now while you have the option, because later you won't have the option. You'll have to use it.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to put a wrapper on it, Ahmad. I really appreciate your time and conversation. You can tell people where they can find you, where they can reach you, and stuff like that.
Of course, yeah. You can find me on Twitter at AmmousMD, and I also have a website, AmmouSMD.com.
All right. Awesome. Thank you once again, Ahmad. Hopefully we can do this sometime more in the future, or I guess another time in the future. And
Sounds good.
good luck with your endeavors and your projects.
Thank you so much. Good
My
luck to you
pleasure.
too.
Thank you.